to Everyday Orthodox. I'm Melissa Bieletich-Davis, and we get together here on Sunday nights to meet everyday Orthodox Christians. And we're always just trying to build up the body of Christ by getting to know each other, by making connections, right? And we're so scattered across this continent, across the world. We have different jurisdictions. We worship in different languages. There's just a lot of sort of fragmentation in a way, but we really are united as a church. And so I think it's really important that we get to know each other, and we know people in all the jurisdictions and in all the corners of the world, and that way we can really live out this unity very beautifully. But so as always, Mike and Simon are in the Chesterton studio, making sure you can see and hear us on YouTube, on Ancient Faith Radio, on Facebook Live, and here we are. So thank you for joining us tonight. I have an awesome guest. I know her personally. I think you're going to like her very much. Her name is Christina Andresen. And if you've heard her name before, she was on Ancient Faith Radio. She used to be a pop culture coffee hour hostess. She was also, she's also the head of OCF, the Orthodox Christian, is it college or Christian? What if I'm going to say it wrong?
Orthodox Christian Fellowship. And I'm...
Okay, good. It doesn't have college in it at all.
It doesn't, because it's funny when you're on campus as a student, you don't need college in the name. So you need Orthodox in the name. Yeah. Oh, the name is definitely
that makes a lot of sense.
The kids on campus and not for us in the pews.
Well, she has been running OCF for years, and she also has a family, a really wonderful family in Dallas, Texas, and we'll get to hear all about her life there and everything that's going on with OCF. So, Christina, welcome to the program.
I'm so glad to be here with you.
I'm so glad to have you here. I saw you in Dallas, and we were planning on having you on the show, and then I just disappeared for a while. But now, my little medical recovery has completed and things are going well. So thank you for being patient and waiting. I really appreciate it. But okay, let's start at the beginning, Christina. Where were you born? Where are you raised? What is your history?
Dallas is home since I was little. Grew up just east of Dallas in a suburb that is kind of on the border between normal suburbia and country, where you get to pass some of the llamas and the cows on the way to school, but actually you're just 2 minutes from Target. So, pretty typical, I guess, Texas suburbia. And my parish that I've grown up in is the same. I mean, we could get into that part of my childhood if you want. We didn't always go to church, but the church that I'm a part of now with my kids is the church that I was a middle school and high schooler in as well. So yeah, I'm a Texas girl through and through, and happy always to fight anyone on Texas being the best.
As a good Texan would. Yeah, absolutely. That is great. So as you're growing up, so you're saying you weren't necessarily in church all the time. You weren't, but it was a presence. You were there somewhat in the same Greek Orthodox Church. And
yeah, I mean, I think my family's story is probably not super unique, but my dad is Greek. He grew up he was born in Australia but mostly grew up in California. With parents who had, middle school educations from being pulled from school during World War II. So the way he describes it, when he was a kid, he was the weird kid who went to a weird church from a weird home, because they didn't have English as their main language. And he was in maybe a culture in California at the time, or maybe even more so now, that wasn't super church friendly. And so, he was church was what you did because it was part of family life. And my grandparents, especially my yaya, were extremely pious people. But, my dad would come home with, why do we do this? And my yaya's answer was, because you do. She had never thought to need an answer other than because you do. And then my dad met my mom while he was in college. She was not Orthodox. And she always says, God bless Father Peter, the priest who brought her into the church. I think I was the first convert he'd ever dealt with. So he had, he did his best, but she's and she says, I loved your dad and I trusted this priest, so I went with it. But he, her being in the church as long as she has now and seeing other people come into the church, she's like, I was not catechized really. I was just made Orthodox for the sake of getting married. And
back then there was no familiarity with, and even I feel like I came in sort of the same way in a parish, very ethnic, had really not, and it was kind of like, why would you be Orthodox? Oh, because you're married to, oh, okay, that makes sense. It was like they were totally confused. But so they, not only did they not like have catechetical resources, but I found that the priests, like trying to talk to you, like you're speaking Protestant Christian, they don't even know what that means. Like there's no, like now someone can sit down and say, oh yeah, sola scriptura and once saved, always saved, all these things. But back then it was a little more foreign to the priests and it was a little harder to speak to you in your own language. So yeah, we really are blessed today.
So so thank God my mom, I don't know, through the Holy Spirit and the love of this priest more than his like catechetical ability brought her into the church. But I think for sure that combination of things, and then my parents moved away from all family for the rest of their marriage. So I think the combination of all those things made it a little hard in the beginning anyway, for my parents to really, for my dad to necessarily know how or why he might make sure we were raised in the church, and for my mom to feel like she was ever going to really be a part of it. She was worried it was always going to be kind of like foreign. It wasn't going to really be her life. And as every Texas kid can tell you, in about 6th grade, you start getting asked, though, if you're saved. And I was getting asked that every other day by all my good friends at school and getting invited to their Wednesday night youth group things and coming home and being like, what is happening? What does this mean? Like I had a very, very light upbringing at that point with the church. We definitely I knew some Bible stories. We would go to church a couple times a year, maybe, especially if Yaya was in town. Thanks be to God for her and her faith. But we weren't like really part of something. But I guess my questions in that middle school era really pushed my parents to be like, okay, maybe we should just go and see what happens. And this is like the whole story of my upbringing is just like how nerdy can you get? But we started going to Sunday school, and they were reading the Old Testament in 6th grade Sunday school. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Why don't I know all of this? And so very quickly, my sister and I, especially, we were the ones who were like, wake up, we're going to Sunday school. Let's go. We're going to church. And it's a bit of a drive. It's about 20-25 minutes from where my parents live. So it was a commitment for sure to like actually get up and get going and all. But thank God, like, I think I was pretty sold pretty quickly as a middle schooler, like, this is where I need to be. And, my parents we just had our general assembly today at church, and my dad's on the parish council and my mom's in the philoptic. It's like, we're all very involved now. So I'm just so grateful that like things happened the way they did, that somebody asked me the questions they did in 6th grade, and that my parents had the wisdom, even though they hadn't made the commitment prior to that, to just be like, you know what, let's just put her in Sunday school and see what happens. And grateful that, my annoying little like nerdy self was like listened to when I was like, but I want to go more. Let's go more. And yeah, like that's kind of, so I always feel like I'm kind of in between. Like I was baptized as a baby. I'm technically cradle, but by the time we were meaningfully going to church on a regular basis, I was in middle school, high school. And that was really where I like was, getting a taste of what it meant to like be Orthodox and to live an Orthodox life.
I love that you mentioned all Texans, by the time they're in 6th grade, get asked, are you saved? Because it really is. It's like there are churches here that train middle school and high school kids to go save the school. And they investigate it. They invite you to the thing. And sometimes, unfortunately, like, because they're young and they're kind of immature, they'll be like, do you want to come to youth group? And you say no. And they're like, okay, never mind. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. So it becomes like a weird social thing to be the kid who's going to be Orthodox and not go. And if you say you're Orthodox and there are saints involved and stuff, they get very worried about your soul. But were you like, sort of like your dad was saying, he was the weird kid from the weird place. Did you feel different because you were Orthodox at this point? Or was it you really didn't know you were very Orthodox? There wasn't a lot of Greek, or was it otherwise different other than not belonging to this youth group?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm so grateful for like the whole journey, because we started going to church more actively, and I got involved in Goya and like the normal things you might think about kid in Greek Orthodox Church. But at the same time, because we didn't live super close to church and I didn't have like a lot of deep rooted friendships at that point in the church, I also went to my like best friend's Protestant Bible study. Or I had gone to like a couple youth group things in like middle school. And then my high school, one of my high school best friends, I was going to like her small group that her non-denominational church ran, where we would read the Bible and we would pray. And we had this like, forgive me, but kind of like weird thing called accountability group that was like sort of teenage group confession. It was not the right model for sure for dealing with your sins as a teenager, but it made me think about the fact that I was a sinner, like finally, like and they are the ones who taught me to like pray every morning and pray every evening, because they did that. And I didn't quite understand the way they were doing it, but it made me open up the back of my Orthodox study Bible and pray those prayers. And my other best friend in high school was Catholic, and we spent a lot of time like arguing, which like really made me answer questions that I didn't even know I had. So I don't know. I guess I've always also kind of been okay being weird. I'm not a fit in kind of person. I've never had that like social need. I don't at all fault teens who do have that. I have middle school and high school kids in my own home now, so I know like there can be a lot of social pressure to fit in. But I was just never a kid who felt like I needed to do that. I was like, here I am. Sorry. So,
what other kinds of things were you doing as a kid? Were you like, did you study a lot? Did you like reading and things? So you're curious about a lot of topics? Yeah,
it was definitely an academically inclined kid and a major perfectionist. So, you know, that comes with its struggles. And then I was in ballet my whole life. I was in from like the time I was 3, and that was like the artistic outlet of being in ballet or all different kinds of dance actually was really good for my like really structured kind of personality. Otherwise, it was kind of the one place I felt like I could be silly and I could sometimes even act up. God bless my ballet teacher who like was like, how come everyone tells me this kid is super type A? Because she comes to my class and she acts nuts. But I'm grateful that I had that kind of outlet to have somewhere that I was a little bit, I don't know, loosey-goosey.
That's fantastic. As your sister danced too, right? Were you both doing it as you were growing up? And then she stuck with it? Is that how that worked out?
Kind of, yeah. We were both doing it. And then we got put in each other's class at one point. We were like together for a number of years. We hated that for like 2 years. And then after that, when we got like, I went off to college, she calls me and is like, why aren't you here? I hate this now without you. So, I don't know. We went through all the circles of that. But yeah, I actually minored in dance in college. So I was pretty active in that in college. And then she got involved. We both taught, well, like at studios when we were both in college in 2 different places. And then, she ended up dancing professionally for a little bit in New York. And I continued teaching all the way through, while I was at seminary. Actually, I taught a bunch of seminarians, kids who like, you know, I don't know if you know anything about the life of a seminarian, but they don't have a lot of extra money. So their kids don't do a lot of extracurriculars, but we did like $5 a month ballet classes for all the seminarian kids. And that was really actually
that's
all the way
neat.
up until I moved back to Texas. I was dancing.
That is really neat. So you were minoring in dance. What was your major?
Mm-hmm. I love telling people because I went to Texas A&M. Like I said, I just am okay with not making sense or fitting in because I went to Texas A&M, which is a major engineering, science, ag school, and I was an English literature and philosophy major with a dance minor. But people didn't know quite what to do with that. Some people would be like, "We have a dance program at this school." You know, they didn't even believe it was like real, but I loved it. It was great.
How did you like college? I mean, not just the studies, but like, did you enjoy the social life? It's a big school. Like, was it a little intimidating?
I mean, I don't want to speak too much for like A&M today because it's even bigger, but I think one of the things A&M tries to do well, or did well when I was there, was they make a big school feel homey, but like the kind of values that A&M embodies around wanting you to have an education outside of just the classroom. Like really encourages you to be involved in smaller communities within the bigger community. So, I mean, I don't know if this is still true, but like when I was there, they would never have a class with more than 150 students. So like even your huge lecture hall class was 150 students, not 300 or whatever. So like that was nice. So I had a lot of classes that were only like, 40 people, 30 people. I lived in like the honors dorms, which was a community, like the honors community was, had a lot of like social structure around. And then I got involved in OCF, and I just never left, which we can get to eventually, I'm sure. But I think I loved the experience of college. I think it's definitely different now from what I hear from students, but I do really feel like I had an experience of higher education that was still sort of like person formative oriented. And it could be because I was a philosophy major, I don't know, but I do feel like a lot of what I did in college was person forming. It wasn't just like how to get through this thing to make money or get the job or whatever. Like maybe a little bit more of what we think of a traditional liberal arts education of, really discovering how to think and what you think and who you are. And I don't know. I love that.
I think you're right, though. I think that's really the major more because, I mean, I think, my kids have gone through college just lately, and my oldest was an English major and Russian, and she really had that kind of experience as well. But then, another one was a math major. Not so much,
Not so much,
She loved it, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same thinking about the person and how you're going to develop and who you're going to be and why. And
Right.
So I think it's probably the topic of study, I guess, that makes a huge difference.
That was part of it. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So how did you get started in OCF? Did you hear about this from your parish priest? Did you go knowing that you were going to try out OCF and knowing that it existed?
Sadly, I had never heard of OCF prior to Camp Emmanuel 2000 and whatever that year was, I guess 2005. So my last year as a summer camper at our Metropolis summer camp, which Elisa, you've been involved in a lot too. So you're familiar with. For some reason, maybe because I have a summer birthday, something got mixed up in like the cabin ordering though. And I got like put in a cabin of like the next age down. Like I was like the only graduate and with a bunch of like going into their junior year girls, which was fine. I didn't know to say something or anything, but I did end up spending a lot more time hanging out with counselors then because, the counselors are like 21 and I was 18 and like all the girls in my cabin were 16. And for whatever reason, it kind of clicked for me to spend time with the counselors and like free time and things like that. And one counselor in particular was the president at the time of the Stephen F. Austin OCF chapter. And he told me about it. He was like, well, if you're going to college, you're going to A&M, like you've got to get involved in OCF. You've got to get involved in OCF. This is like the thing to do. And since I had like kind of spent the week hanging out with these counselors that's what they were doing. I did go to A&M looking for it, which I don't think I would have if it hadn't been for them. So that was kind of like how I heard about OCF. When I got there and I reached out to the OCF, I got invited out to dinner by the current OCF. And I got to this dinner and it was 3 grad students and I think a senior. I don't remember. It was like 4 people and 3 of them were grad students. And they were like, hello, freshmen. How are you? How would you like to have OCF? It could be yours.
Have it. Yeah, you can run it now. It's all yours. We're leaving. We're graduating. Ouch.
Pretty much.
Oh my.
Pretty much. So I think like within a semester, I was president of the A&M OCF chapter, having just learned about it that summer right before I got there. So
wow.
Kind of got thrown in, but all things end up kind of like being a part of the plan and the story. So I'm not sad about that. It was a little intimidating at first, but it turned out to be a totally amazing experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, great preparation for what you're doing, right? Like you're sort of building up a branch. What do I want to call this? Building up it's a campus group. It's a What do you call one unit? Chapter. Thank you. I just totally lost that word. I could not figure it out. But anyway, but it's actually kind of good experience, right? Because you have that first experience of kind of a lonely OCF and working to build it up. And then you have like I assume by the end, a group of friends. And so you have both experiences and you can help kids through that. It's really good.
Yeah.
But it is funny. A lot of people don't know about OCF. And so I'm always like, I'm a Sunday school director, right? So I'm always, senior class, sit them down. This is what OCF is. I send the website and the link to that chapter, like to all the parents and say, this is the priest in charge. Send an email to the priest, copying the parents. Hey, there's a kid coming. You're going to really want to meet him. Just to try to kind of get it moving, because too often, I think, for one reason or another, kids are kind of reluctant sometimes to join something. It's all so new, right? They're on campus and dorms and classes, and it's just a little overwhelming. And so sometimes they're not going to seek it out. And you really, you have to help them see it, because I think it's so comforting once they get there. But do you find that that kids continue to join throughout college, or do you find that mostly it's freshmen coming in?
Yeah, I mean, thank God, it's definitely both. I mean, there is research out there that's kind of old at this point, but I'm still using it. I don't care. That says, college students pretty much, they build the habits and friendships that they're probably going to keep for those 4 years within the first 6 weeks of their time on campus, which for us, like 6 weeks is like so perfect. It's a 40 days. So we talk a lot about like how the first 40 days of college is like really, really crucial for OCF chapters to reach out to new students and for new students to kind of find their home within like the church community and within the OCF. But we for sure see students all along the path. I mean, we know from our own experience that there are times when we like kind of think we are fine on our own and we don't need the Lord and we don't need his community, and we just like trailblaze on our own, and then we realize, wait, what was I thinking? And so we definitely get students like that who freshman year, they heard about it, they knew about it, and they were like, I'm good. And somewhere around like junior year, when they're like, wait, I have to like live a whole life after this college thing. I don't know what it's going to look like, that they kind of come around and are get involved a little bit later. And we just kind of always keep an open door, and as best as we're able, a judgment-free zone for when people are ready for to kind of get integrated back into the community.
That is great. So as you're sort of, what was your experience at A&M in this OCF? Just sort of, you're like the undergrad in the OCF.
The undergrad. Well, I started dragging other people along. I love some of these stories I've told. I usually tell like with just OCF students, but I feel like it's fun to hear like how ridiculously awkward that I was sometimes. But I remember I talked maybe like 5 or 6 Orthodox undergrads into going to like dinner together at like just on campus in like, one of those like basement fast food joints that's on campus or something. And I wasn't very good with silence at the time. I don't know if I'm very good at it now, but I definitely wasn't good with it then. So when there's like these 6 people who really don't know each other and really don't know if they want to keep hanging out with each other, and they're all just kind of being quiet, I remember being like, this is so nice. This is so nice to have people to eat with. I just have been eating all of my meals alone every day. So it's really nice that you're here. It's just like the most ridiculously awkward freshman thing to say. But one of the people that night, like we'd all traded phone numbers and everything, he like reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to not eat lunch alone tomorrow? And we started eating lunch together occasionally. And, just, I don't know, letting my awkwardness happen, we were able to kind of like start building real friendships. Pretty quickly too. We had a girl in a sorority who wanted to be an OCF, and one of the struggles she was finding was that she had never really like fasted growing up, but she suddenly was wanting to try to learn. But she also felt bad because she lived in the sorority house where like the rules are the rules. You eat what you're served. Someone was making their meals and she didn't want to be picky. So we started doing like Friday night dinner together whenever we could. Like in my dorm, like we were like making like rice in a microwave bag, and like beans from a can. It was like really unfancy fare, but we would eat in like the common room of my honors dorm. And we started attracting other people that way too, that were not yet Orthodox. Just being like, what are you guys doing eating rice and beans in the common room? So yeah, it took a while, but we definitely gained momentum over time. And had a pretty good group by the time I graduated, and it was a blessing to be able to like pass it on to someone younger, and it not be just like the 3 graduating people and the 1 freshman at the time. We were passing it on.
That is great. So when you said they were not yet Orthodox, did any of them become Orthodox, or are they still not yet Orthodox?
No, for sure. No, we had, my very first semester, there was another young person in my dorm who was like already on the path from high school, and we just happened to end up in the same dorm together. So I think he was received that very first semester, but then I think, 3 other members of like 3 other people who lived in my dorm over time eventually became Orthodox while we were there. Just from us being like around and doing things like, spending time together. And
wow. I mean, I think in a lot of places, people would be very surprised to, and I think in Texas, more and more, it's actually quite common. And in fact, even, Archbishop Dimitri had this experience, right? That like we have college, because it's a religious place, it's a Christian place, people are thinking about spirituality. There actually will be college students who will notice Orthodoxy, hang out with you, and then decide, okay, I think I'm gonna be a catechumen. I'm gonna be baptized. And I think, where I grew up and the communities that I came into, they were so surprised to have an American come in. I think they would have been floored by the idea that American college kids might see somebody fasting, be interested, and then find their way, right? I mean, that's just, it's got to be so far outside their experience, especially for, earlier immigrants who had such a difficult time socially, that to now have this, I don't know, do you think, I guess you're national. So does that happen in other states? Does that happen around the world?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to stay in my era first, my husband became Orthodox at Penn State across the country from me while he was a college student. From the presence of the OCF chapter there, the presence of the Holy Trinity, the OCA parish that's there. They had and still have a person who preaches every day on campus who's Orthodox, who talks to students every day. He has started doing it as a Protestant and was one day challenged by an Orthodox and a Catholic student who converted him. This preacher. He's known as the colored preacher. You can Google him. You can find him, Gary. And
he's known as the what preacher?
The Willard preacher. He preaches out.
Willard preacher.
Willard. Yeah.
Okay.
And my husband, to really shorten a story down, is one of his converts from, again, this same era of when I was in school, who he and many others, many of whom in my husband's cohort are now priests, except for Daniel. He's avoiding that at all costs. Became Orthodox in State College. It's definitely been, I guess you could say, been a thing in OCF throughout the years that we're seeing people come into the church. But obviously, everybody's talking about the trends now, post-COVID, of young people coming into the church. And so more and more, certainly in the South, but all over, we're really seeing a lot of young people inquiring, a lot of young people converting. And, OCF is often then like kind of one of the first places that they're encountering Orthodox community, that they're encountering what it's like to be like a full member of the body of Christ. So this is pretty important, I think, like the way we're having to think about how we're ministering to college students. We're not losing sight of, obviously, the importance of kids leaving Orthodox churches as high schoolers and going off somewhere new. Like that's like obviously core foundational to our the way we think about ministry. But we have to start thinking about like, okay, but how are we making sure that people are coming into the church in a healthy way, that we're ready to receive them when they show up on our doorstep? They say, hey, what are you doing eating those beans and rice? But instead of it being 3 people in my dorm, it's like 40 people from all different kinds of backgrounds and walks of life that, maybe we weren't even seeing people from those kinds of backgrounds coming into the church so frequently up till now.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk to you more about that, but we're going to take a short break and come right back. We'll be back on Everyday Orthodox with Christina Andresen. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Genevieve, the Director of Development at Ancient Faith Ministries. I want to wish you all a warm and spiritually nourishing Christmas season. As we journey through the sacred Nativity fast towards the birth of Christ, I pray you are filled with hope, awaiting the light of the world. Throughout history, Christians have understood that the light we receive is meant to be shared with others as a gift. St. Nicholas secretly brought hope to families in need, and St. Lucia demonstrated how we can be light bearers in a world of darkness. Here at Ancient Faith, we are honored to edify, evangelize, educate, and engage countless seekers, believers, and those hungry for spiritual nourishment. Every donation, no matter how modest, becomes a light that we pass forward to our listeners. As you prepare for the Nativity, would you consider giving the gift of light to Ancient Faith? Your gift, whether 25, 50, or 100, joins with the offerings of countless others to ensure that Christ's light continues to be lit and shared. Please visit ancientfaith.com and click support on the top menu. Together we are light bearers. Together we prepare the way of the Lord. Blessed Nativity to you and yours, and thank you so much for your generosity.
Everyday Orthodox. This is Elisa Bielatich Davis, and tonight I'm talking with Christina Andresen, and she is the director of OCF, our college ministry, our Eastern Orthodox college group. And it's not just outreach, right? I mean, it's really it's like a community of college students. And it's really very beautiful. We're just talking about students actually coming in to the church during those years. And I know, as you said, there's a lot of talk about that now, right? Young people coming in and, you know, they've got their ideas from YouTube, and is that okay? And I've heard recently some people say to me, well, have you even seen any female converts? Isn't it all young men? And, you know, I'm sitting in church today and we had a bunch of catechumens. Father called them up for a blessing. It was almost as many women as men. It really wasn't just one or the other. Is that what you see in general across OCF as well with young people, that it's a mix?
I would say in the last year or so, it's becoming more gender balanced. There was for sure like a male heavy moment we were going through, I'd say between 2020 and maybe 2024. And just this year, I feel like I don't have any like big charts or anything to go off of. I have my own parish and what I'm hearing from my staff on campus and things like that. There seems to be a balancing out of the gender imbalance that we've seen the last few years in both like the cradle kids who are coming as well as the converts who are coming in. There's not really like as sharp of a line around like it being mostly guys.
Well, and I like what you were saying about, you know, we have to be ready to receive people. Because as you've said, a lot of the energy, like when you and I first met, all the conferences and all the speeches and everything we would hear was always how to keep your kids in church. Like, what are we going to do about kids leaving? And it's still an issue. It's still a thing, because honestly, that's kind of an age group that wanders off. And so you got to rope them in a little bit. But I think you're right. There's this new problem of like, not a problem, a good problem, right? But how do you receive people? Because Father Evan and I were just talking about this a few weeks ago, actually, on this show. But when you have an influx of new people coming in, it's hard. If you had 30 people in a community and one person comes in, it's really easy for that person to recognize the community structure and learn it and become part of it. But when you're trying to assimilate as many people as you have, there are as many people in the room who don't know the culture as there are who do. So how do you pass that on? What are you seeing at OCF, and what has worked with that?
Yeah. Well, let me add to that for OCF. And also the ones that they're learning like, what does life look like, are figuring it out themselves and like still being discipled because they're 18 or 19 or 20. And also they're in this really weird time that's super abnormal for any other time of our life, where they're like completely cordoned off from intergenerational normalcy, like everything that's normal in every other part of life, especially in the church, is intergenerational, and college is not. College is so peer oriented. So it's peer oriented with peers who themselves, like the norm of the community, are still in need of their own discipleship because of their own youth and their own like figuring out themselves. And then they're coming in as new in like, maybe a third of an OCF chapter that's brand new to orthodoxy. So I think like what we're seeing is that what's really working best for us is the places where we started placing full-time campus missionary staff, where we have someone, a layperson, totally dedicated to this totally bizarre situation we have. That's not like anything else the church does, but that's helping bridge the gap between the campus and the parish to the campus, who's discipling students one-on-one, spending time with them, creating a community life for the students, but that doesn't let them live in a peer-only space, that is encouraging integration into parish life, integration with clergy, integration with families that are in the community, and who can just give the amount of hours that young people in general need, and then young people who are asking a million questions as they're coming into the church and getting all kinds of information from all kinds of places, who need someone to really walk with them to say, okay, yes, you've learned that fact now, but how are we going to live? Like, what is it going to look like if you become part of this community, for you to just like be a person and wake up every morning and live this life? So, we're really grateful. We have, and there's successes happening all over the country. I don't want to discredit any of the amazing work clergy and volunteer leaders are doing for OCF chapters. But where we're seeing like really bright shining spots are in the 3 places now we have full-time staff. You're not going to be surprised that I very biasly launched this program at Texas A&M. It was easy. It was nice to go somewhere familiar where I knew the lay of the land, where I knew the people involved, I knew lots of alumni. But we also have someone full-time at Arizona State, and we have someone full-time in Atlanta serving Georgia Tech and Emory. And in every place, we're reaching more students than we were before someone was there, and we're reaching them more deeply. We track what we call depth of reach, which is how many times is the same student coming back or engaging with something we're offering. And that continues to increase in the places where we have someone who can offer more opportunities, who can invite them out to coffee. It seems kind of obvious, but like in terms of like the rest of the campus ministry world, the Orthodox Church has kind of been behind the curve in terms of the investment we've made in people specifically serving that area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know at A&M, I've been there. I've visited the campus. In fact, your campus missionary, was on the show at one point.
That's right.
And he's great. It really, you can see what a success it is. And it's just so organic, right? It's just, you have the time to do the things. Because when you're a faculty advisor, when you're a parish priest, you can't, hang out with students every Tuesday and then do a prayer service and then go have coffee and answer all their questions. But how beautiful to have someone who can. And I love that you call them missionaries, because it's really, we think of a missionary obviously going into a foreign place, but how beautiful to see the church have a mission field at campus, right? In the college. And it's really turning out to be quite true. It's neat.
And one of the things we really emphasize when we talk about missionary, we say, like, what do we mean by missionary? Is if you look at the kind of history of Orthodox missions, of the missions of the church, it's often that someone was sent where the church kind of already was, but they're sent with a specific role within the community to build up the community and have this like spilling out beyond the small community. So I think some people get a little stuck on that because like we mean missionary maybe in a different way than you might hear it otherwise, like in the Protestant world or whatever. But we're sending someone to serve the church where it already is in the hearts and lives of the Orthodox students that are there in a way that then becomes attractive to those around them. Most of the inquirers and converts that we're getting, I mean, of course, some of them are coming because they watch some YouTube video, but a lot of them are coming because they're somebody's roommate or somebody's friend who asked the Orthodox kid a question and said, the kid was like, I could maybe answer that, but if you come with me to scripture study on Thursday, our campus missionary can definitely answer it. Why don't you come? And so it actually empowers the students to be the church on campus in a way that they couldn't without their missionary there. But not because the missionary is like out on the street corner, like preaching or like trying to talk people into becoming Orthodox, but just because they've been kind of called out within the community for this specific role of receiving people and of building up the body of Christ where it already was on campus in a way that's spilling out beyond the current community.
That is beautiful. And that's really a good point about missionaries, right? Like we have OCMC, we have missionaries in Albania, where Orthodoxy has been for a long time and where there are communities, but they're being encouraged, they're being fed there. And so they grow from that. But it's not that sense of like, I'm going to an island where no one ever heard of Jesus and I'm going to give them a big surprise. Guess what? You've got a Messiah. Like it's not that, but it is so, it's so encouraging and so beautiful and sort of organic, right? To grow something that already started into something much more beautiful. I love that. So how do you do, like with missionaries, first of all, how do you pick a missionary? Can anyone be a missionary? Like, how are you choosing? Where are you finding them?
Yeah, I mean, we do open applications whenever we're hiring people for OCF. And I tell people all the time, we tend to hire people off of like culture more than like just a skill set. We want people who kind of match our way of thinking about young people with like a lot of respect, a lot of love, a lot of empathy and openness. We want people who are, hardworking and humble at the same time, like hardworking, always going to put forward their best and not offended though when we push them to do a little bit better. So, we're not right now. We've hired, I think it's fair to note, we ended up hiring 2 people who came out of the seminaries who have Master of Divinity. So they're theologically and pastorally educated. And we've hired 1 person with a master's in social work who's a community builder and a connector. And we've been able to do some continuing education with him around how to be a catechist and those specific things that he's needing to do in his role. But we really are looking for people who are faithful themselves and, like I said, kind of fit the culture of OCF and our way of thinking about ministering to young people and connecting them to the life of the church, more than we're looking for, like, a bullet point list of, certain resume.
Right. You have to have certain degrees and you have to have knowledge, but not, yeah. That's neat. That's really neat.
And then we do provide them like with training and continuing education, which is something that's really cool. We're giving everybody kind of a baseline of training, and then each person, because they are unique and they're uniquely called and gifted, and like if they identify something that would, or we together identify something that could like build up their ministry, then OCF invests in that person being educated in that area to build up their community even better.
Oh, that's neat. So how do you pay? I mean, I assume missionaries are paid, right? Like this isn't just volunteer full-time.
No, it's full-time. It's full-time work. I mean, I think a lot of times people don't realize this, that OCF, along with all the assembly agencies, are not actually magically funded by like the Archdiocese or the Assembly of Bishops. We are all our own like 501c3 nonprofits. So we're mostly funded by individual donors and parishes that are supporting us. Occasionally we get grant money and we do receive a little bit of like money from each archdiocese, but most of the time this is being funded off of people who think this is important, who want to see our college students well taken care of, who have kids themselves and they want to invest in what they're seeing as good work happening in the lives of their own kids. Alumni from those schools and parish communities that just make the commitment to say, college ministry is too important for us to not invest in and not spend some money on. So
that is wonderful. So just sort of a note to our listeners, keep in mind, you don't have like, there's not a department of passing out money. We don't get taxed in the church, right? So there's no stores of money. I mean, right. There's a tithe that goes up. The money we give our archdiocese is barely enough to pay for a secretary. Like as it goes up the path, right there aren't a lot of employees. There's not a big behemoth organization. And so really, but that's, I think in a lot of ways more beautiful, because that means that you get personally involved and you think about it and it means something, and there's something beautiful growing in you from that association with it. And you're able to be a part of a really beautiful ministry and really important ministry and change lives, right? I mean, that's important. So, OCF.net, if you want to become a donor to OCF, you want to help out while they're bringing in all these kids and nurturing them and helping them, not go awry, but because you're right? Like I think of kids who grew up in the church and who go to OCF. So many of them were kids who were maybe they were in Goya or they're in, a dance group or something, but they're not fully checked in spiritually until they hit that maturity of college and they start looking around. I mean, it's common, right? I mean, I've met so many people. The other interesting thing to me about the years at OCF is I cannot tell you how many people I've met who were Orthodox and they grew up kind of thinking like they're Orthodox because they're Greek or because, they're Egyptian or whatever. And then they get there and they realize there are a bunch of Orthodox people who are not their ethnic group, which they hadn't seen before, right? Because we have we have these wonderful basketball tournaments and things, but they're all in your group. It's not going to be the Antiochian kids versus the Greek kids. Maybe it should be. Maybe we should work on that. But it's really cool. OCF is kind of that first taste of pan-Orthodoxy, I think, for so many people.
Yeah. Can I tell you, first of all, you're telling my story. I didn't know there were churches that were not Greek. I knew you could be Orthodox and not Greek. Obviously, my mom and we had like diverse backgrounds in my own parish, but I didn't know there was a Antiochian Archdiocese or I didn't know any of these things for sure. Also was the kid who was like, thought I was pretty spiritual until I went to college and actually had a spiritual father and actually had someone investing in me and like me, paying attention to my life. And I think for sure it's so much of like figuring out adult life. But I want to say something that's like shocking in some ways, but also like, I don't know what to make of it yet. Not this last summer, 2 summers ago at our summer program that we do, that's a leadership training. We always have like really invested when we do leadership training into talking about pan-Orthodoxy and making sure we're breaking down the barriers between different groups from different jurisdictions and making sure everyone kind of like challenges the assumptions they have about one another. And 2 summers ago, when we were doing that session, which I normally lead, I turned to halfway through it, I turned to one of my other staff members, was like, I don't think we need to do this anymore. Like, they don't need this. Like, wow. Kids were coming to us, young people are coming to us already like, everybody can be Orthodox. I don't get what the big deal is. I'm so grateful. I don't know what parents out there are doing differently, or just the way people are being brought into church as converts maybe, or they're being encouraged to like see different parishes before they kind of root themselves. I don't know what's in the water of the church, but props to all of you and the Holy Spirit, of course, because I'm seeing a lot more young people now coming who it's just normal to them that anyone from any background could obviously be Orthodox, and we could just do all of each other's fun cultural things, and that's just fun, and we don't need to fight over who's just more Orthodox. Or anyway, glory to God, the church in America is moving in a new direction from when I was in college, for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, it makes sense. I think in parishes, you see so much more diversity and openness and so many more converts. In fact, some of the cradle kids we have now are children of converts, which is sort of sort of throws you every once in a while, because it's like, oh yeah, you're cradle Orthodox, but your mom was born Episcopalian and your dad was Lutheran, but you're cradle Orthodox, because that's how it works, right?
Exactly.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's really a whole new era, and it's quite wonderful. And just as we were saying, like with your mom's conversion, right? There was a time when, why would you convert? Oh, you're marrying into a Greek family, or like, I was marrying into a Serbian family. So it made sense. So everybody was okay with it. But I had just wandered in off the street. They were confused. They weren't thinking like, this is a wonderful faith that everyone could benefit from. And I don't think they didn't think it was wonderful by any means, but it just hadn't occurred to them that everybody else would want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very different now.
It's neat. It's really neat. And it's wonderful to see how much it's growing and what a great job OCF is doing. Now, so you were in OCF in college. You then married someone who became Orthodox in OCF. And so what is going on with your life now other than OCF? You guys have kids, I know. Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, first off, I sound like a little bit of like a, I don't know, like I don't think about anything else ever except for OCF, but it truly is like probably
kind of true.
Most pivotal. It's true. It's one of the, it's pretty much the most pivotal part of my life. I mean, I learned how to be, like I said, I learned how to be a normal Orthodox Christian because of my OCF community and the priest that took care of me while I was at A&M. I met my husband who had converted the year before through OCF while we were on an OCF real break trip. And I kind of discerned that I might go to seminary, which I did because of my OCF leadership experience and like some crazy throwaway line that someone said to me. I mean, like sometimes I think about it now, I'm like, why did I think this would work out? Where I asked a current staff member when I was a student, it'd be kind of cool to work for OCF. What would I need to do that? And they were like, well, you should probably go to seminary. And like, I just did. And like, somehow also actually got a job at OCF. I don't know. Like, it's a little crazy to me that I did that. But yeah, I do have 3 kids who very proudly call themselves the OCF mascots. They have not escaped me either. My oldest made herself a t-shirt when she was like maybe 10 that said like OCF mascot that she like wore with me to college conference, and had to get all the college kids sign it. So they think they're famous. Maybe they are, I'm not sure. But I don't know. I think there's something very contiguous about being a parent, especially now that I have a teenager. My oldest is 14, with the ministry that I was called to, because really college ministry and parenting, or it's all just, and God parenting, I have a lot of godchildren, like is really just discipleship and living life alongside one another in a way that like the little bit of maybe experience you have having, I don't know, been sober a little longer, that you are like able to help someone else along the path. So I think a lot of times, like, I look around my kitchen with my kids or my godchildren, like cooking with me or asking me their tough questions that they're starting to come up with. And I think, well, this is just more OCF. But in the best way possible, because, it's really just the life of, this is the life of discipleship in the church, that we're constantly trying to be discipled by someone. And that when God calls us, we're answering the call to disciple those who are put into our care. And so that's kind of my life.
That's beautiful. Well, I know the field. I mean, I know I've done a ministry with college students and with high school students, and I feel like there is something a little bit maternal about it, right? Because you're like looking out and you're leading someone, guiding them. But but you would think like the separation when they're older is because there is a lot of respect, and you're trying to, honoring them as dignified people, right? But I mean, if you're a good parent, that's what you're doing at home too, hopefully. So
I joke all the time that like, a lot of parents, I think, get like freaked out by the teenage years. I was like, I was the most prepared for teenage years. Right. I spent so much time with college students who gave me all the inside scoop on what their parents did that worked and didn't work for them when they were in high school. So toddlers were way scarier to me than teenagers. I didn't know what I was doing when I had little tiny people, but yeah, no, like you're right. Like helping my kids as they get older stand on their own 2 feet and know that the church is always home. There's like nothing you can do that you can't come to church because it happened in your life. Like this is just the place you come to be cared for. I feel like is one of the most important goals I have for before they leave my house, is to know like where home is. And where unconditional love is. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. What lucky kids, my gosh. But so as you've been raising them, and of course, you have a beautiful parish. And I know when I stopped by and visited, there are just all these other kids, like godchildren and friends' children. And it's just clearly, that's one of the things I love about my experience in my parish too, is that you have parents who are friends and who love each other. And then the kids, one time I was at a birthday party with one of the women from church, and her neighbor said, "You guys are like sister wives." And I was like, whoa, like that's weird. But she was like, no, I mean, you really love each other's kids.
Yeah.
Like your parents to each other. And it's like, you do feel like a parent. You might not discipline them or something, right? That might be, there might be inappropriate crossovers here, but you do care about them, not like, maybe two neighbors might notice their kids and be nice to each other. But it's like you really love them and watch them grow and are invested in their well-being. And I think it's wonderful. But I saw that you had a community very much like that. And I'm curious, do you do any kind of ministry with the younger kids at church, or are you sticking to college? Are you like 2 feet in now?
Yeah. I mean, at my own parish, I always think it's super important when you work full time in ministry that you don't forget to still tithe your time to your own community. Like, it could feel like, oh, I do church all the time, I don't need to do it here. Right. To me, it's really important. And I really encourage our staff to think of it that way too. Like, to have good boundaries. You don't need to do everything, but like, what are you kind of just giving to your own community? I tend to get asked to do things that are more like in the training others, which I think is great. That's kind of my job now. I used to work a lot directly with college students, and now I kind of support and mentor the people who are working with college students. And I do a lot of that in our own parish. So like this year I trained our catechists and Sunday school teachers, some of them, the ones for the older kids, and our Goya leaders on facilitating good discussion and mentorship. I train like all the people who give church tours for our festival and throughout the year and lead that group. So I kind of tend to like be in like a equipping role to like help equip people within the community to do the work, rather than feeling like I need to insert myself into every project. Although I do some of that too, God forgive me, but I don't do a lot of direct things with the younger kids, except for my own godchildren. Like I said, I've got 3 biological children, and between the adults and kids that we've sponsored, I think 13 godchildren. So I do invest a lot of time in spending time with them, the younger ones that are around especially, and having them in our home. And, there's obviously, because this is important and like it's part of our tradition, there's also so much research that talks about how important it is to have trusted adults in a kid's life that aren't their parents. I think the like magic number is 5, that if they have 5 trusted adults when they leave home, like they're more likely to stay connected to their church community. They're more likely to have someone like just have better outcomes overall because they have people they can go to. And I think all the time about how like orthodoxy, if we're doing it right, has those 5 people built in already for you. Because if you've got 2 parents and 2 godparents and a priest, like you've got 5 people before you leave for college. So, to me, it's really important that wherever God has like placed me as potentially one of those 5 people in a young person's life, that I like make good on it, I guess, that it's not just like in name only, but like really deep and a rich relationship that they can rely on when they become the OCF kid and leave our home.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and that's a good point. And it's important for people to think about, like, what is your role with young people in your parish? Are you a trusted adult? Are you a resource for them to come to? Are you a person who's cheering for them and loves them? Right. I mean, and that's a beautiful and important role that really everyone can and should be filling. And what a glorious thing to have that many wonderful people. Yeah, it's beautiful. But it also strikes me, for the kids in OCF, they have this beautiful OCF community. But whether they are in OCF or not, young adults really need the parishioners to really notice them and reach out to them. They're sort of, they didn't grow up here. They're strangers here. They might be young professionals. They might have graduated already, but to have that community, and I think that's really part of what OCF is so great at, is creating the peer community, as you said, on campus. But we could also be great at supporting that with a parish community.
100%. I mean, what is the point of having OCF if people don't get rooted in parish life? Like, parish life is real life. Like I said, college is weird. The college is only going to happen for these couple of years. And we absolutely need a ministry that's kind of like catered to this very unique and strange time. But it only matters in my mind if it's serving to ultimately deeply root young people in parish communities. And we can't do that just because we like come in, I don't know, alone. Like, the parish has to be receiving people, like you're saying. And I think it's pretty easy for parishes to think about their kids when they send them off. They think about them like, oh, they're gone, but they'll be back, and then we'll send them a care package, or we'll make sure we see them in the summer. But it takes a special parish. There are lots of them out there, but I don't think it's everybody that remembers that you're also receiving somebody else's kid who just got sent off, and somebody else, some other parish and some other set of parents are really hoping that you are going to receive them the way you're hoping your kid's getting received when you send them off. And I think we could do a more intentional job as parish communities of looking out for new faces in general, but new young faces especially, because I think you mentioned earlier, like, they're not going to stay at coffee hour unless someone asks them to. And even then they might tell you no, but like, it's way more intimidating when it's like you're totally your first time being the adult going to a new parish community to just like stay and make a friend. And it's so much easier if anybody, some Thea, somebody says, are you new here? Do you want to come sit with me and have a cup of coffee? So
absolutely.
Totally with you on that one.
So we end with this challenge to you, listeners, like, do your part, help support OCF, and do your part to support the kids in your parish, the kids who've just showed up, the kids who are looking around and feeling lonely. Christina, thank you so much. This was a delight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience for joining us. And we'll see you next week with another Everyday Orthodox Christian. Good night.